Your jeans still fit in the legs, they still zip up at the thighs. But something shifted, and now there's a roll sitting above your waistband that wasn't there 18 months ago. You didn't change what you eat, you didn't stop moving. Your body just rerouted everything. There's a moment that catches most women completely off guard. It doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in. You're standing in front of the bathroom mirror one Tuesday morning, maybe brushing your teeth, maybe just staring at yourself between thoughts, and something looks different. A thickness around your midsection that feels foreign, a shape you don't recognize, like it belongs to someone else's body entirely. Your hips? Thinner than they've been in years. Your thighs? Honestly leaner. But your belly, that's where everything traveled. And I'm choosing the word traveled deliberately, because that's exactly what happened. Your fat moved, not metaphorically. Not, oh, I just gained a little holiday weight. Your body literally rewrote its blueprint for where fat gets deposited. And it did it without asking your permission, without sending a warning sign you'd know how to interpret, without so much as a memo to your conscious mind. And here's the part that gnaws at me. The thing that keeps me up at night after decades of working with women navigating this phase. Most of them walk into my office blaming themselves. They think they ate too much, moved too little, got lazy, lost discipline somewhere between 47 and 52. They carry guilt like a second skin. None of that is true. Not one word of it. Let me tell you about Colleen, 53 years old, runs a ceramic studio outside Portland, the kind with exposed brick and too many mugs drying on wire racks. She came to me convinced something had broken inside her metabolism. She'd been roughly the same weight, give or take 4 or 5 pounds, for over 20 years. Same breakfast rotation, same evening walks with her dog, a retriever mix named Biscuit. Same portion sizes at dinner. She wasn't careless, she was consistent. But in the span of about 14 months, her body changed shape in a way that felt almost architectural. Like someone had taken a building and moved the load-bearing walls. I didn't gain weight on the scale, she told me during our first conversation. I gained it in the wrong place. That sentence, the wrong place. I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard it. Hundreds, maybe more. Women from different cities, different backgrounds, different body types, all landing on the exact same phrase. The wrong place. And Colleen wasn't imagining things. She wasn't being dramatic. What happened to her body has a name and a mechanism and a biological explanation that most women are simply never given in plain language. It's called fat redistribution, and it's driven almost entirely by one thing, the decline of estrogen. Now I want to slow down here, stay with me, because when most people hear the phrase estrogen drops during menopause, their mind jumps to the obvious symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats, the mood swings that feel like someone rewired your emotional thermostat overnight. They don't think about where their body stores fat, but they should. Because estrogen is not just a reproductive hormone. That's one of the greatest oversimplifications in modern medicine. Estrogen is one of the most powerful regulators of fat metabolism your body has ever produced. It determines not only how much fat you carry, but exactly where it goes. And for most of a woman's reproductive life, estrogen gives the body a clear set of instructions. Send fat to the hips, the thighs, the buttocks. Store it just beneath the skin. Keep it subcutaneous. This subcutaneous fat, the kind your body stored for decades, is metabolically gentle. It doesn't inflame your organs. It doesn't spike your insulin. Some researchers actually refer to it as protective fat because it functions as an energy reserve and produces beneficial hormones of its own. Your body was smart about this, deliberately so. So for 30-something years, you had a system, a fat map, a routing protocol written in estrogen, telling every available calorie, go here, not there. and the system worked beautifully. Then perimenopause begins. Estrogen starts to fluctuate, wildly at first, surging 1 month, crashing the next. And then it begins a longer, slower decline. And with that decline, the map gets redrawn. The routing protocol rewrites itself. Fat no longer flows to the hips and thighs the way it used to. Your body starts sending it somewhere entirely new, the abdomen. But not the surface of the abdomen, not that soft layer you can pinch between your fingers. Deeper, around the organs themselves, the liver, the kidneys, the intestines, wrapped around them like packing material. This is visceral fat, and it behaves nothing like the fat your body stored before. Visceral fat is metabolically aggressive. It's not passive storage. It's an active endocrine organ in its own right. It secretes inflammatory cytokines. It disrupts insulin signaling at the cellular level. It increases cortisol sensitivity in the surrounding tissue. It elevates your risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and certain cancers. Let me be blunt. This isn't about how your clothes fit. This is about what's happening beneath the surface. And that distinction matters more than most women ever realize. Now here's where it gets worse. And I don't say worse to scare you. I say it because the cascade effect is the part nobody explains clearly enough. And understanding it is the only way to actually interrupt it. So follow the dominoes with me. Estrogen drops. Fat storage shifts from subcutaneous to visceral. Visceral fat increases systemic inflammation. Inflammation disrupts insulin sensitivity. Insulin resistance tells your body to store even more visceral fat. More visceral fat creates more inflammation. And the loop feeds itself, each layer compounding the next, accelerating quietly in the background while you're standing in front of your closet, wondering why nothing fits right anymore. This is why dieting doesn't work the way it used to. You're not fighting a calorie problem. You're fighting a hormonal shift that changed the rules of the game while you were still playing by the old ones. I remember the moment I explained this cascade to Colleen. She went very still, didn't say anything for almost a full minute. Then she looked at me and said something I have never forgotten. So I've been trying to solve a math problem with a spelling book. Exactly right. And she's not the only one. Right now, millions of women across the world are doing the same thing. Restricting calories, pushing harder on the treadmill, cycling through intermittent fasting protocols they found on Instagram, beating themselves up for a body change that was never about willpower or effort in the first place. It was hormonal architecture. Nothing more, nothing less. Let me go one layer deeper, because the estrogen-fat connection is more intricate than even most health professionals appreciate. There are estrogen receptors on your fat cells, actual receptor sites, molecular docking stations. When circulating estrogen binds to these receptors, particularly the ones concentrated in the hip and thigh region, it activates an enzyme called lipoprotein lipase in a very specific pattern. This pattern encourages fat uptake and storage in those lower body areas. It's targeted. It's intentional. Your body was engineering its fat distribution with the precision of an architect. When estrogen declines, those receptors go dormant. The enzyme shifts its activity profile, and the body's fat storage preference flips. Not gradually, not gently. Almost like someone threw a switch inside a control room you didn't even know existed. But wait, there's another layer. Without estrogen's regulatory counterbalance, cortisol gains disproportionate influence over fat distribution. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, has always had a preference for abdominal fat storage. That's its default setting. But when estrogen was present in normal concentrations, it acted as a check, a buffer, a voice in the room saying, "Not so fast." Remove that buffer, and cortisol fills the vacuum with its own agenda. So now you've got two independent forces both pushing fat toward your midsection. Estrogen leaving, cortisol stepping in. And if that weren't enough, I really wish it were. There's a third player. Testosterone. Women produce testosterone too, in smaller quantities, and it declines with age. But here's the catch. It declines at a slower rate than estrogen. So during menopause, the hormonal ratio shifts. Estrogen drops sharply. Testosterone drops slowly. And in that gap, in that window of relative imbalance, testosterone's influence on fat distribution becomes more pronounced. What does testosterone favor? Central adiposity, belly fat. The exact same pattern you see in men, which is driven largely by their testosterone dominance, starts emerging in menopausal women because the counterbalancing hormone is no longer there to say, not the belly. 3 hormonal currents, all flowing in the same direction, all converging on the abdomen, all reshaping your body in ways you were never warned about and never taught to address. I need to pause here, because I know what some of you are feeling right now, that heavy, sinking thought. So there's nothing I can do about this? That's not where this story ends, not even remotely. But I had to take you through the mechanism first, because without understanding why this happens, every solution feels like a shot in the dark, and you've taken enough blind shots already. It was exactly this frustration, years of watching intelligent, disciplined women struggle without answers, cycling through diet plans and fitness programs that completely ignored the hormonal reality underneath, that drove me to search for something different, something that actually addresses the root architecture. I left what I found in the first link in the description and in the pinned comment, because I believe when you finally understand the cause, you deserve tools that work with your biology instead of against it. Now, let's talk about what actually bends the curve. The first truth, and it's not the glamorous one, but it might be the most important, is that the type of exercise matters dramatically more than the volume. Cardiovascular exercise, the default that most women reach for, the long walks, the elliptical sessions, the Zumba classes, doesn't effectively target visceral fat in a hormonally reorganized body. Not on its own. Not anymore. What does? Resistance training, strength work, loading your muscles against gravity. Here's why. Muscle tissue is metabolically expensive. It burns energy constantly, even at rest. When you build and maintain muscle mass during and after menopause, you create a metabolic environment that counteracts insulin resistance at the tissue level. You give your body an alternative destination for incoming fuel, muscle repair, muscle growth, metabolic maintenance, instead of defaulting to abdominal fat storage. Research published in the journal Menopause and in obesity reviews has consistently shown that postmenopausal women who engage in regular resistance training demonstrate measurable reductions in visceral fat accumulation, even without significant changes in total body weight. Let me underscore that. The scale doesn't budge, but the fat migrates back out of the danger zone. Second, and this one surprises almost everyone, sleep architecture is far more consequential than people realize. During menopause, sleep disruption is nearly universal. Hot flashes fracture the night. Anxiety pulls you awake at 3 in the morning. But what most women don't connect is this. Fragmented sleep directly elevates cortisol output the following day. And we just talked about what cortisol does in the absence of estrogen's balancing act. So fixing your sleep isn't a luxury or a comfort measure. It's a metabolic intervention. It directly reduces the hormonal pressure that drives belly fat accumulation. Dark room, consistent bedtime, no screens after 9. These aren't wellness platitudes. They're physiological levers. Third, and this is where I see the most confusion, dietary composition matters exponentially more than dietary quantity. The obsession with eating less, counting every calorie, shrinking portions until meals feel like punishment, it misses the target entirely. What matters is the ratio, specifically the balance of protein to refined carbohydrate. Higher protein intake supports muscle preservation, which you desperately need during this transition. It stabilizes blood glucose. It reduces the insulin surges that visceral fat thrives on. Meanwhile, refined carbohydrates and excess sugar do precisely the opposite. They hammer the insulin cycle, accelerate fat storage in the abdominal cavity, and perpetuate the loop you're trying to break. And here's a piece that often gets overlooked entirely: anti-inflammatory fats. Omega-3 fatty acids, from fatty fish, from flaxseed, from walnuts, have been shown to reduce the inflammatory markers that visceral fat itself generates. You're not just changing what your body stores, you're calming the fire that the stored fat keeps lighting. It's a two-front approach: reduce the fuel going in, dampen the inflammation already burning. There's a pattern emerging. Can you see it? Every single strategy that actually works during menopause shares one underlying principle. It doesn't wage war on the body. It cooperates with the body's new hormonal landscape. It acknowledges what changed, honestly, without judgment, and adjusts the approach accordingly. It meets your biology where it actually is, not where you wish it still were. Colleen understood this. It took her a while. Old habits don't dissolve overnight, but she committed. She stopped running 5 days a week. She started lifting 3 times a week instead. Nothing extreme, nothing you'd see on a fitness influencer's page. Just consistent, progressive loading with dumbbells and bodyweight movements. She restructured her meals around protein, complex carbohydrates, and those anti-inflammatory fats we talked about. She treated her sleep hygiene like a medical prescription, because that's exactly what it was. And in 4 months, her waist measurement dropped by nearly 3 inches. Her body weight on the scale? Almost identical. Her body had simply reorganized its fat stores. Again. But this time, she was the one giving the instructions. And that's the piece of the puzzle most women are never handed. The redistribution is not permanent. It is not a life sentence. Your body remains remarkably plastic, even at 53, even at 61, even at 68. The fat patterns that shifted can shift again, once you supply the right biological signals. Not more suffering, not more restriction, not more guilt. The right signals. And this, all of this, is something I put together carefully for the women who come to me feeling like they've lost the map to their own body. Because I've watched the transformation that happens when someone finally receives the complete picture. The relief in their eyes, the exhale, the quiet realization of, now I know what to actually do. If you want to explore this further, I left something in the pinned comment and the first link below that expands on everything we covered here. Have a look when the time feels right. There's one more thing I want to leave with you before we close. A thought that changed how I frame this entire transition for my patients. We've been conditioned to speak about menopause as loss, as decline, as the body falling apart. And I understand why. The cultural narrative is built almost entirely around what vanishes. Estrogen disappears. Fertility ends. The body you spent decades knowing becomes unrecognizable. But that framing is incomplete, maybe even unfair. Your body didn't lose its intelligence during menopause. It recalibrated for a different biological chapter, one where the priority shifted from reproduction to long-term preservation. And visceral fat, as dangerous as it can become when left unmanaged, is actually your body's attempt to protect vital organs during a period of hormonal vulnerability. It's not betrayal, it's adaptation. Misguided in its execution, perhaps, but not malicious in its intent. When you understand that, truly absorb it, something changes. You stop treating your body as an adversary. You stop yelling at it from across the bathroom mirror. You start listening. And that shift, from war to conversation, is where real, lasting transformation begins. If this changed anything in the way you see your body right now, subscribe to this channel, because what we've covered today is just one thread in a much larger tapestry. There is so much more to uncover. Hormones that no one discusses, signals your body sends that most women misread entirely, and strategies that genuinely move the needle when everything else has plateaued. But I'll leave you with one question, a question that might stay with you longer than anything else we've discussed today. If your body has been rerouting fat to protect you all along, what happens when you finally give it a reason to stop?